Welcome to the Remix, the video podcast that keeps you in the mix of everything real estate. I'm Noelle Freisen.
And I'm Eric Anderson, and today we're going to talk about the ins and outs of wholesaling.
Ooh. This is huge on TikTok. Huge. Everyone is TikToking about wholesaling and making quick money.
Well, let's introduce our wholesale expert. He loves wholesaling. And I think he loves wholesaling all over the place, especially in Jersey City, New Jersey.
Jersey City is a great place.
Tell us about wholesaling, Omar.
Of course, we have Omar Sharif. You've seen him before. He's always on the podcast. We love him. But he got his start, well, somewhat of a start in wholesaling. And he knows that it's not a phenomena. It's not new. It's been being done forever. And it's not as easy as we think it is, right?
Right. So it's as common as getting a real estate license and buying and selling properties, just with a little twist for investors.
Okay, well,
A twist.
it's a twist. How did you start in wholesaling? Like, what was your beginnings in wholesaling?
Sure.
Well, what is wholesaling? Shouldn't we do that first?
What were his beginnings in wholesaling?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
So you could do both. So wholesaling is when you find a property that's discounted, you get it under contract, and instead of purchasing it yourself or doing the full renovation, you assign that contract and sell the property to somebody else for a fee.
Right.
So it's what investors use to find discounted distressed properties, which you typically won't find on the MLS or through real estate agents. So when I first began, I started the traditional route by getting my real estate license. But most realtors don't deal with investments. And once you start to look into how you can find investment properties, wholesaling comes up. Mm-hmm. So how do you find, if you find a good deal, do you have to be a real estate licensed agent? No, you could be, you have to figure out how to get it under contract. And then if you don't have the money to close on it, you can go ahead and sell it to somebody else for a fee.
So would you consider yourself a wholesale expert?
It depends how you define that. I don't do it full time at the level of a lot of people, so I wouldn't say expert, but I do understand the ins and outs of it.
Okay, so how many wholesale deals approximately have you had so our viewers understand your expertise and how you got it?
Wholesaling, I'd say I've done right over 40 deals.
That's a lot of deals.
It is. And how long did you do it?
I did it initially heavily in the first 3 years into real estate, but then as it came, I wasn't focused on it heavily.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. So it really explain to us, because it's a hard concept to get. Really explain to us, like, start from the beginning, like, how do you wholesale? Like, what is it? What am I doing? Am I finding someone who wants to buy something? Am I finding someone who's selling something? What am I doing?
Sure. So let's take one of your viewers. They want to get started in investing in real estate. Now, the school offers getting a real estate license course.
Right.
But they don't want to be a traditional real estate license agent. They don't want to buy and sell homes. Instead, they want to understand the investment side of real estate. Mm-hmm. So how do they find their first deal, and what does a good deal look like? Mm-hmm. So what they'll do is they'll begin to go out and look for distressed properties that need to be renovated and discounted, with the goal of doing a value add and making a profit by reselling it.
Okay, that's what, if I wanted to be a flipper, that's what I'd be doing.
Right. But before you get there, most people may not have the funds, may not have the know-how. So what they'll start with is, how do I find the right deal? Now, if you start to look for deals and you come across a property that makes sense, it's discounted, there's profit on it, but you're not able to close it. Mm-hmm. You don't have the funds. You don't have the $150,000 to purchase it. What would you do with that deal?
Well, off the bat, without knowing about wholesaling.
Mm-hmm. But you have something in your hand. Your neighbor, for example, wants to sell their home.
Right.
It needs work and they're offering it to you at a good price, but you're not in real estate.
Right. So, and I'm not at a point where I can purchase it and then do something.
Right.
So there's a money-making opportunity.
Yes.
So normally I would just be like, well, there's nothing I can do. Oh, there's a missed opportunity. But with wholesaling, what do you do?
So in this case, Eric over here,
who's a big time investor,
who's got
got
lots of funds. So what you can do is say, hey, Eric, my neighbor wants to sell their home, and this is a price that they agreed to sell it for. Mm-hmm. I think there's a significant profit to be made if you purchase it, fix it, and sell it. Is this something you'd be interested in? He's going to say yes.
Yes.
So then you have to figure out what fee you can collect while the deal still makes sense for him. So if you're getting the property for $150,000, maybe you can add a $10,000 fee for yourself. Mm-hmm. You get paid $10,000 for bringing the deal to him, similar to a commission, except you're not acting as a real estate agent.
Correct.
Now he's happy because he gets a deal brought to him. It makes sense. Close on the deal, and that's your first wholesale.
So, okay, let me say. So, my neighbor came to me. He's selling his house for 150 grand.
Yeah.
I can't do anything with it because I don't have 150 grand to buy it, right? But I know Eric is an investor. He flips houses or he buys and holds, and he would be a great person. I know he has the money for it.
But I don't know about the project.
But
and
he
you
doesn't
do.
know about the project.
Right.
So I go to Eric and I say, listen, Eric, dude over here, he's selling it for 150. Do I tell him he's selling it for 150 or 160?
In this case, you would have to. No,
Okay.
150. 150.
I tell him for the 150.
Yeah,
I don't
it
put
has
in
to
my
be
10.
disclosed because of the.
Okay.
It's a small
So
fee.
how does she get a profit then? How does she lock it in?
Sure. So there's a few things. In this case, assuming you know everything about the house and the price and the condition, and you present it to him as if this is a deal and he agrees to it, right? All of that has to happen. You can't just come up with a random number.
I want the house, Noel.
And there is a $10,000. I'm charging a $10,000 fee for bringing this to you, but you're going to make 100 grand after you do everything. So the 10,000 is
What's
a drop
the
in the
address?
bucket.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you what the address
You're
is.
going to ask me what the address is.
and then
Well,
you're going
let's
to tell
work.
me, and then I'm going to go direct.
Right? Aren't I going to say, well, let's work out the terms first, and
don't know.
then
No. So before you
don't.
even go to him, you have to work out the terms and get in contract with the seller. It's just you and the seller.
Tell
Because
us how to do that.
so you'll sign a contract. In this case, knowing that it'll be a smaller fee in this case, what you'll do is you'll sign a contract with the seller at $150,000.
Okay.
It'll have all the terms outlined, whether it's as is, cash purchase. Most likely it will be a cash purchase. Closing date, deposits, if any, so on and so forth. That contract is now between you and the seller, or maybe your company and the seller. And you're going to assign that contract to Eric for a fee, that $10,000 fee.
Got it.
So when he comes along, his price
it.
is $160 from the start.
Got it.
But he knows, do you tell them that there's a fee for you as the broker or as the middle person?
Yeah,
have to
Yeah, in this
disclose.
case, it'll come up even if you don't disclose it. So yeah.
Okay, so we understand the basics.
So basically, you're assigning, Noel's getting a contract, and that contract is being assigned to a new buyer.
Yes.
So then Noel never actually closes on that house.
No.
Got it. You got that, Noel?
I do.
Okay.
I do understand that.
Now,
So-
how much money can Noel make? Like, is there a rule that says she can only make 10 grand, or can she make
No.
50 grand? What
So
can
let's
she
say
do?
that same house makes sense for you at $160,000, and what if Noel picks it up at $60,000?
Ooh.
Now
Oh.
she can make. Let's just assume, right? We're throwing numbers out here, but let's assume that now there's $100,000 spread.
That's good.
It's great.
Sounds like I want to wholesale.
But when I go to him and tell him that there's $100,000 spread, isn't he going to be like, give me my $100,000?
So that's going to cause an issue, right? Because now if you know that she's getting it for $60,000 and she's assigning it to you for $100,000, would you feel comfortable giving $100,000?
So if I was Noel, I would pitch the story as I was going to do this myself, and now I can't do it myself, but I know that the money here is made in the flip, and the house is worth 400. So I would go and say, hey, you're going to be able to sell this for 400. I'm not going to take this opportunity because my plans have changed. So here it is for you at 160. And there I made my 100 grand without an issue.
But putting that story aside, you're still going to see. Let's do it with that story. You're still
Okay.
going to see $100,000 being given to her just for
Yes.
signing the contract, and she's going to come
Would
with a lovely
would
story.
I question it? I wouldn't question it because I would look at what am I going to make.
You might.
There are people, yes,
But
that
most
would
people, I
question
think,
it.
would
So
question
as
it.
an experienced investor, and this is where relationships come in, you won't question it because you'll look at the bigger picture that
Yeah.
if I do one deal with her, she'll bring me additional deals.
Yes.
Most people won't do that. They'll say, well, if you're making 100, I could cut you out and go straight to the seller.
Okay.
Which is why if the spread is that large, assuming all other things are working out, you have to close on the deal first and then resell it.
Okay, I don't want to go there yet.
Okay.
I want to handle some more of the basics.
But it's
because
only 60 grand, so you
I-
should close on it.
I should close on it. Let's just handle a couple of things. So, you said that, you can, how much money can someone make doing this full time?
So it depends on their operation. Like anything else, a good wholesaler can easily make six figures and there's no cap.
Okay, there's no cap. You can make six figures. What about part-time? Can people do this part-time?
They can do it part-time because wholesaling is something that comes along as you're still doing real estate. Now, if you're outside of the real estate field altogether, no, it's going to be tough for you to do it. You can still do it, but it's going to be tough.
So I have the magic question. I know you're going to hate this question because I know you. What is the most amount of money you've ever made
We had a segment
on
about
one
this
deal,
before.
one wholesale deal.
On one
Not,
wholesale
I don't
deal.
want to know how much money you made
Okay.
through wholesaling. I just want to know, because we just
Yeah.
talked about how $100,000 was questionable and Noel should close
Sure.
on it first. So I'm not talking about what did you close on and then flip. I'm saying what was the most amount that you were able to
Put into my pocket.
Right.
that you were able to get through without an objection in the basic assignment of a contract. What was the most amount of profit that you were able
No,
to
my
make?
assignments were typically up to 15,000. They were never 15 to 20,000
That makes
So
sense.
then your highest was 20. That's what I'm asking.
assignments. Yeah,
That's what I'm asking
Yeah.
you. Because the other deal, you're closing and flipping. I'm not asking you that.
yeah.
I'm just asking you assignment.
Okay, yeah.
So you would never try to assign a contract with $100,000.
No, well, maybe if I have a very close relationship with the person, yeah.
So this is really
It's
a
time.
quantity thing. You want to, it's a numbers game. You want to have as many deals as you can.
It's definitely a numbers game, yeah, because you won't make big spreads on every deal. That's for sure.
Okay. And the deals that you're finding are basically off-market deals, like your neighbor coming to you, things like that, things that haven't been listed with a realtor yet.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you also do wholesaling in commercial, or does it have to
Yeah.
just be
Ooh.
residential?
Wholesaling is just a fancy word that's thrown around, but it's basically signing a contract or finding something undervalued and reselling it for a fee.
Now, but wait a minute. Isn't this what a real estate agent would do? Isn't
No.
it? I mean, but isn't it what, I mean, a real estate agent is going to find you the deal that you want and then take
Sell
a
you.
commission for it.
No,
Yeah, but they don't own it. And they're not going under contract.
and they're not dealing with discounted properties. They're trying to get
Okay.
There's disclosures and responsibilities agents have towards their clients that wholesalers technically don't.
So you have no fiduciary
That's the
responsibility.
word for it. No fiduciary responsibility.
So maybe that's part of this next question is how do you source wholesale deals? So let's talk, like, a wholesale deal is anything you can flip to someone else, but you
Yeah.
just said that realtors really don't do that. They more just sell stuff that's out there on the MLS. So how are you finding these wholesale deals, and what makes a wholesale deal or wholesalable? What are the tricks, and
Sure.
why are they considered wholesale deals?
I think our audience is going to have to wait for the how do you find them, because we're going to talk about that in
Okay.
depth.
Okay.
But the second part of that, shoot.
What was the second part?
The realtor? The realtor part?
No, what was the second part?
The difference
What
between
makes it a wholesale deal?
Right. What
versus
makes it a wholesale
all right,
deal?
So what happens often, I'm sure you probably get this question asked even at the school, is when someone wants to begin in real estate, they come to get their license. And then they
Correct.
ask you, how do you get into the investment side of real estate?
Correct.
Right? So someone who wants to avoid getting their license, they typically ask themselves, how do I get into flipping houses and find discounted deals?
Correct.
And that's where the wholesaler starts. They don't even know they're a wholesaler yet, but that's where they begin, because what they won't do is they won't put on a nice shirt, tie, and shoes and go pitch a seller that I could get the highest price for your home. They'll go look to solve problems in their local neighborhood. If they see weeds or overgrown, mail is piling up, maybe they'll look at public records to see who's behind on payments, tax delinquencies, and they'll start to dig and see who needs to sell their home. It's different than what a realtor does. A realtor puts on a nice suit, nice clothes, they go make their pitch. I could get the best price for your home. I could do open houses. A wholesaler is looking to solve problems for people who need to sell their property. Solve
Okay.
problems.
So people that are in distress, they can't pay their bills.
Yeah.
Someone died, they need to get rid of the house because
Right.
it's
Yeah.
not theirs and they're moving, or they're across the country or whatever.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's rare for, although it does happen, and it's even happened to me, it's rare for your neighbor to just hop on over and sell you a discounted property.
Right.
Rarely ever works that way. A good wholesaler is going to go out, settle debt for people, help people avoid foreclosure, and really solve an issue that the typical realtor doesn't get involved with.
So if I wanted to go out and start wholesaling, would I want to learn about how to help people avoid foreclosure? Would I want to do some research on some of that stuff before I'm out there pitching why I'm the person that's here that they should trust to wholesale their property?
Yeah.
And do I tell that person, hey, I'm going to wholesale your property?
No, you don't need to tell them you're wholesaling it. But it's the more you know, the better. So if you know how to solve people's foreclosure problems, it just makes you better equipped. But a typical surface level for wholesale deal is found amongst someone who's just motivated to sell. You don't have to get technical with their financials. What if someone inherits a property and they just don't want it?
So there are two ways, and we've talked about this, that there are two ways of structuring a deal. And we're about to go into what those two ways of structuring a deal are.
Okay.
But first, if you want to find out more about this kind of stuff, if you want to learn how to structure deals, find the deals, flip the deals, invest in the deals, wholesale the deals, you want to subscribe. Also, just so you know, Omar is not just a pretty face on your screen, right? He is doing a class for the Center for Real Estate Education that takes you in depth into these things, that gives you the step by step. So just go to recareercenter.com and look for the wholesaling class. Okay, so tell us about the 2 types of structures for the deal.
So we discussed one, which is assigning the contract.
Okay.
Right? But now, what if the spread is $100,000? And we talked
Then
about how
Eric would tell me to go away, and he'd go find that.
So
place
let's just
himself.
qualify the $100,000 spread. If we're flipping a $2 million property, having a $100,000 spread's okay, probably.
Yeah, but you probably wouldn't. That deal wouldn't make sense at that point.
Okay.
So the margin
Commercial.
At $2 million, but even for 100, who's gonna?
If I find a property for $2 million that's worth $6 million, and I'm flipping it to Noel for $100,000.
Well, that wouldn't make. No, it wouldn't work out.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I'm trying to do the math. It wouldn't work out. So
Okay.
on a smaller residential, because remember, if it's going to cost you $2 million to make 100,000, right then and there, it's not.
It's not worth it. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in a residential deal, if the spread is large, you have to be cautious with how you present it, because the end buyer will look to cut you out unless you have a very close relationship, and even then they're going to raise eyebrows. So the second way to do it is you have to purchase a property, plain and simple, and then resell it to the end buyer.
So you have to go under contract, put the down payment, actually have the money to purchase it, and then sell it again.
Yeah.
So, well, the biggest thing that students come to us to ask is, how do I get into investment without having
And this is
funds?
the best way to do it, because once you get into that scenario, if you have a deal with a spread that large, you can find the money from somebody in your circle or go out and find a money partner.
So
Okay.
would that be like a hard money lender in this case?
It could be, but it could also be somebody like you.
Yeah.
Well, then I'd just say, give me the deal. I
You
want to
would,
buy the deal.
But if you had someone that bought something to your table where you
Right.
could both win, and he had more in the pipeline, why not?
Okay.
So you can either sign the contract or you can close on the contract. But okay, so now I'm starting to get it. If I don't want to get my hands dirty improving the property, right? So we all know that I'm not a person who's going in, cleaning gutters or,
Cleaning anything.
cleaning anything. So I don't want to get my hands dirty actually improving the property.
Yeah.
So I would go through, I would buy it, and then instead of actually fixing it and flipping it, I would just sell it right then to Eric so he can get his hands dirty.
Yes.
Got it.
I always get
Yes.
my hands dirty.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got it.
And that's it.
Got it.
Now, the challenge, of course, is finding and understanding how to do volume in this. And that's what separates the people that you mentioned on TikTok who think it's a very easy way to make money from people who are actually doing it successfully.
Now, does everywhere allow you to sign the contract? Can I go to any state? Could I be in New Jersey and doing this in Missouri and assign a contract?
As a general answer, I'll say yes. In New Jersey, it depends on the contract. If the contract says it's not assignable, you have to remove that clause and just disclose that this contract is assignable.
So you have to make sure before you sign anything
Yeah.
that you screen it and make sure that so your lawyer should know what your intent is. So when he's reviewing or she's reviewing that contract,
Right.
got it.
Right. And that's
Okay.
if you're using an attorney. Some states, some areas, some deals don't require attorneys at all.
Okay, so it has to have no wording that says you cannot assign it.
Correct.
Or then you're dead.
Or you just put in there, I guess if you're safe and you say, I have the right to assign this contract, then you're covered.
As long as it doesn't conflict with this contract is not assignable, because some people do that. Yeah. So typically it's as straightforward as this contract, the buyer is Eric Anderson and or his assignee.
Have you ever had a situation where you couldn't assign something after you got under contract?
Not for contract reasons, no.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Okay. All of this sounds a little shady, though. It sounds like you're hiding stuff. Are you? I mean, do I have to disclose to both the seller and the buyer? So I don't have to disclose to the seller, right?
Do you have to disclose your intent?
Right. Exactly.
Disclose, well, it depends. It depends. We're not hiding information
Sounds like we are.
from the seller. No, we don't have to disclose what we plan to do with the property. once you buy it, you can do whatever you want with it. Just like you could do anything you want once you purchase a car. But at the same time, there is a fine line between manipulating and taking advantage of someone versus giving them a fair price based on what you both agree on. That's how everything works, right? So if you go out to buy a used car, you agree on a price based on what other cars are selling for, and that's your price. But what if you overpay for it? What if you get at a very low price? So same thing applies. But in this case, the seller, if it's a contract assignment, yes, they will know what you plan to do with it, that you can possibly assign it to somebody else.
They know that I could possibly.
And there's verbiage in the contract that supports that. So this isn't a standard realtor's contract that you use. It has to be a different contract with these provisions in there.
Okay.
So as a wholesaler, should I go out and have a contract made? Should I talk to a lawyer and say, hey, I'm going to become a serial wholesaler and I want to have my own version of a contract that I can just have ready and just fire that out to people?
Yeah. Or you can take a class on wholesaling and hopefully the instructor can provide something.
Right.
Here at the Center for
Here at the Center
Real Estate.
for Real
Yeah.
Estate.
Okay.
So it's not a contract you want made from scratch, but it does require some tweaks because you don't want to use the standard real estate contract.
Okay.
Is there a percentage I can use for my margins?
Percentage-wise, no, because what it's going to come down to is when you come across a deal as a wholesaler, you'll be able to say that if I was to do this deal myself, I could resell it for X amount. So at what price does it make sense for me to purchase it as someone who plans to flip it? Whatever that price is, that's your target price that you could sell it to for Eric.
Got it.
Now, if that price is $150,000, what if you get the property for $50,000? It can happen.
Really?
Yeah, it can happen. Now, these types of margins are typically not found from your neighbor coming over and giving it to you. But when you get into foreclosures, short sales, tax delinquencies, second, third position liens, that's when these bigger margins are created more often.
I think people are going to be really excited about the assignment one, just because you don't have to have a down payment, right?
No.
You might have to have earnest money, but that's not a lot. I mean, on a $150,000 property, that's not a lot of money.
It's not. And it's typically a cash closing. So from
Okay.
start to finish, you're not holding the property for a long time where an earnest deposit's always needed.
You have to have a lawyer, right?
No,
No,
you don't have to.
You don't have to.
Are you safer if you have a lawyer? Did you use a lawyer for all of your
I stopped
deals?
using attorneys when I was the buyer, but from the seller's point of view, it makes sense to have an attorney. If the seller is someone who knows nothing about real estate, you can advise them to get an attorney, but that attorney is going to nitpick the contract, nitpick the deal, and do everything they really can to get in the way.
Yeah,
that
they're gonna
happens
kill
often.
the deal.
So you have to disclose to the seller that this is an as-is purchase. We agreed on this price. This is a contract. If you want it reviewed by an attorney, go for it. But if that attorney starts to nitpick it, this deal is off before we even get there.
Now, when you started wholesaling, were you a real estate agent?
Yeah.
Okay. So did you disclose to all of your potential purchases or your clients that you were a real estate agent?
Yeah. Good,
Okay.
great point. You have to, if you're a licensed agent, you have to disclose that you're licensed, but you're not acting as a real estate agent.
On both sides, on the seller and buyer side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Very important disclosure.
Does that have to be in writing, or can I just do it
No,
verbally?
it has to be in writing.
In writing.
And this question comes up often because a lot of real estate agents say, "Can I wholesale?" or "I can't wholesale if I have my license, so I won't get licensed." You can. You just can't come off as a real estate agent and then be a wholesaler, because when you come off as a real estate agent, you give the seller or the buyer, in this case, an impression that you're a professional, a real estate professional, and you're giving me fair market value
Got it.
based on comparables in the industry standards.
Which we're not.
We're not.
Right.
It's an open negotiation.
But does
Well,
it
you're not representing the seller at that point. You're representing yourself, and you're
Right.
trying to get the best deal possible.
Correct. So it's a fair and open negotiation.
So you just say, "Hey, I'm a real estate agent, but in this capacity, I'm trying to get a deal,
I'm just Noel.
or I
I'm
don't
just-
represent you, and I'm not representing the market price. I'm just here to try to help you get through your situation and take this property off
I'm
your
a real
hands."
estate agent, have my license, but I actively buy properties, and I'm not acting as a real estate agent in any capacity in this transaction.
Okay.
And should that be in writing?
Yeah.
Okay.
However, if you are a real estate agent, then you have access to the MLS. But would the MLS help you at all in this situation?
The MLS is useful for getting information about the property, comparables,
yeah.
It'll help you resell it.
Just data. Yeah, that to relist it.
So, okay, so we know what it is now. We know the details, right, of how you're going to do this, the 2 different contracts, who you're going after, blah, blah, blah. We know that everyone's going to subscribe. Now tell us, how do we find these elusive deals, these mystery deals, these 50 grand, $300,000 houses?
Sure. So the example we gave of a neighbor coming over to sell you their home, very rare, although that has happened to me, believe it or not. It's very rare. So a good wholesaler is a problem solver, right? And what type of problems do you have to solve to get good deals in real estate? People's financial problems.
All right.
So if someone is going into foreclosure and you understand how to settle liens, there's big opportunities in there to get a property discounted because you're discounting it from the bank, not from the seller directly. That's one example. Another example, if someone inherits a home and they're out of state and they have no way of getting there, they just don't want it, they'll agree to take a reduced price based on the condition of the home, and that's where margin is created. So as a good wholesaler, you are an amazing detective / marketing person who's able to find these distressed situations and provide solutions to people.
So we're talking death, right? If someone dies
That's
and they
one.
want to sell an estate.
Yeah.
We're talking divorce. If
Yeah.
someone's getting divorced and they need
Sometimes,
to,
but not really, but yeah.
to do it quickly, let's say they need to do it quickly or
Divorce has so much red tape in it that it's not often, they want to maximize their
got it. We're
Their
just-
sales
So
price.
should you be chasing ambulances? Like
That's
when you,
exactly right.
when you see an ambulance
that's-
pulling into your neighbor's house who's, 100 years old, do you now say, "Oh my God, I have to contact his relatives"?
Well, that's one way to look at it.
Okay.
But put it this way: if whether or not you do it, that person's either in contact someone to sell the house, whether it's you, the real estate agent, the next wholesaler, the next investor, someone will come and purchase that house.
So we're
So-
talking death, distressed properties, and delinquencies. Financially delinquent.
Yeah. What are the 3 Ds? Death, divorce sometimes, and debt. Yeah.
And
Debt.
debt. There
Debt.
we go.
So about 10 years ago, after the financial crisis, there was lots of foreclosures. And that was a great time to wholesale because there was lots of short sales in the market. Home prices were still being reduced. And that created an opportunity to get volume. In today's market, that's less common, but there's still always a distressed market. And there's always deals being done where someone can wholesale.
How did you find your deals when you started out?
So initially,
Did you walk the streets?
Did you door knock?
I did door knock some. I tried that. I sent out mailing campaigns. I put up what's known as bandit signs, which we've all seen. Are you familiar with bandit signs?
No, what's
No,
a
what's a
bandit,
bandit
sign?
sign?
So when I first got into real estate, I used to see these signs on telephone poles that said, "We buy houses cash."
I've seen those, and we
And-
buy ugly houses.
Yeah.
We buy.
And so I used
Buy
to wonder,
whatever.
who are these people who want to buy houses cash? Who's sitting around with cash and putting up these signs saying we're interested in buying houses? So
Did you call them and say, "Who are you?"
I did.
Oh.
So I called just to understand it, and then I read up more on it, and I realized that those bandit signs are being put up mostly by wholesalers, people who are looking to purchase homes that are under distress by putting out this cash offer.
Because you're not going to call that not unless you really need to get rid of your property,
Exactly.
right?
So it's a
Okay.
very specific target for someone who wants to get rid of a house and get cash for it. And does it work? It has to work because we still see it till this day, right? People are still putting them up. So I spoke to a few people who were doing it, and they had great success with it. And so I started doing it.
So you actually went. You were one of those people, 3:00 in the morning, who was like sticking signs on the middle of the highway,
On the telephone poles.
in the middle of the highway or
believe it
whatever.
not, and 3 a.m. is right too. So anywhere from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. I was out there initially, and then I hired some people to do it. I had a friend who I started with. We were out late night or early morning before traffic, putting up these signs. And we had no idea. We had no idea what to do even if we got a call. We didn't know how to evaluate properties. We didn't have the money at the time, but we're like, let's just see where this goes.
So at one point, how many signs did you have out there?
It's hard to put them up. So,
Allegedly,
no, yeah. So it's hard
it's
to put
against
them
the
up.
law.
Yeah, right. Well, that's another point to go over. But initially, it's hard to get these signs up in good locations. So we put out maybe 30, 40 a night, which is not much.
Okay.
We never went and put out 100, 200 a night. It just takes a lot of time.
Now,
So-
did you wear all black with a hoodie and all that, and go out there and?
No, we just went late night. And
Turn the lights off in the car.
Yeah, we should have.
But wait, are there technological way? Okay, that was back in when God was a baby, and you did it a long time ago. Are there some new techie ways? Because
I
I
don't know
was
about that.
I
God
know,
was a baby
maybe
thing.
like 10 years ago.
I was Googling techie ways of wholesaling and stuff like that, and I couldn't find anything. But if you're a soccer mom who needs to be home at 10 to 3 a.m., are there techie ways of doing it?
So when you say techie, you mean
Like not leaving my house.
Non-banded
to
signs.
find deals,
Right.
So yeah, that's to put up bandit signs is not even you don't even have to do that. But alternatively, you're talking about marketing for leads. So is there a techie way to market for leads? There is. You send out mailers. You can cold call. You can get lists, find the owner's name, information, address, reach out to them. So these are the common ways that have always been done. This is nothing new.
Right.
Technology makes it easier because now you could robocall 1,000 people like we all get and see it becomes an easier numbers game.
A robocall.
Did you find it harder to deal with people that you know? Is it always easier to deal with strangers? Because if you're dealing with that neighbor or you have the soccer mom group and then you find out that, 3 of the soccer kids' families are in foreclosure, I feel like people are embarrassed to talk to the people that they know about
That's
this stuff.
a great point. So these are the people that'll call the sign, right?
Okay.
Because they don't want to broadcast their situation. So there's always that market. Once you fall under distressed circumstances, everything in your life changes and you close up. So people have this idea that people under distress are going to an attorney. They're not. They don't always go to an attorney. They don't always take the most public way to solve their problems. If they get a call from someone saying, hey, I could help you out. I see that you're under debt. It's public information. This is what I do for a living. Chances are they'll listen to that phone call. And if this person can deliver, that's a one-on-one, and that person has no reason to even go outside of them. So I fell into lots of circumstances like that. And when you genuinely help someone settle their debt, these are options that they don't even know exist. So I had one client, which was my biggest wholesale deal that you mentioned. But that deal took me over a year to get done.
Wow.
And she was in a really bad circumstance because her house was flooded during Hurricane Irene or something. And it went into foreclosure. She couldn't make her payments. She had liens from her business attached to the house. She had credit card liens. She had IRS tax payment liens on it. And by the time I got to it, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing at this point, but I can help you because I know the basics of settling liens. So I was able to get the bank to discount the property down to pennies on the dollar. This was back right about 2013. And then she had like another $200,000 in IRS tax liens, business debts. So I called each one of those lien holders and settled all those debts for significantly less. And then the IRS tax payment, just by chance, it expired literally like 2 months from the moment I got it. I looked it up and it was about to expire because it's a statute for tax liens to expire.
Oh, so it just went away.
Yeah, I told her just wait 2 months and this is literally just went away. So because of that, there was a significant margin created on that property. Now, this took me literally a year to get done. Lots of paperwork, lots of back and forth. But once I had it completed, I got that house at a price that I'll never in my life see again. And it was very easy to just sell it to the next person.
But you put in a lot of work for it.
Time, a lot of time.
A lot of time.
Did you get it under contract before you started to put in the time?
So this was such a long-term deal that we just ended up having a good relationship. And the contract I had, the listing I had, it was irrelevant at that point. She just understood that I was trying to help her. So I don't remember if it was an ironclad contract.
Okay.
But
That's
yeah,
a lot of time to put in and not have
it is
contract.
and that's part of it. But what ends up happening on the other side, I've been burned really bad because even though I had a contract, the seller, once they see the price that you get the house for, whether it's a discounted price, they'll cut you out and bring another agent in or another buyer in. So I've been on that side of it too.
But if you have a contract, how are they cutting you out?
Because it's so many different technical reasons for it. The one that comes to mind is this one seller who I worked with for over a year. I helped them evict the property, evict the tenants that they needed evicted. They were losing the home. I got a short sale for a great price. I was going to sell it, and everything was approved. I thought I would make $50,000 on that deal, quit my job, and my life would be amazing. But what happened is there was a divorce case, and the husband and wife were disputing, and because of that, she wasn't paying attention to what he was doing with me, and she accused me of trying to commit fraud. Where did she get that claim? I have no idea. But she said I made her sign all these documents that were fraudulent. So she called her attorney, and her attorney called me and said, you made her sign documents that you're not supposed to sign. I said, this is all BS. This is a legitimate transaction. And long story short, that attorney scared me because I was new at the time. and said that you don't have a legitimate contract because your listing expired. I said, yeah, my listing expired, but everything I have with the bank is still accurate. She said, no, because your listing expired, she could go list with somebody else. And that's exactly what she did. She listed with somebody else. That guy took my approval and sold the property within 2 weeks. Yeah. And this was over a year of working with these people. So I've been on
So
both
you
sides.
didn't have a contract as a wholesaler in that case.
This wasn't that type of, it was a different, I forget the specific details, but it was a different deal because it wasn't, I had the property listed on the market as well.
So you were acting as a realtor in that case.
But we were going to purchase it. I had a buyer for it.
Okay.
And there's lots of details that I could go into, but what happened is the listing expired. I didn't pay attention. Once the listing was under contract, but it expired.
So is this a situation where you acted as a realtor and upon learning the circumstances of the client, were able to turn that into a wholesaling opportunity?
Yes and no. Because I would still be the listing agent in this property for legal reasons, technical reasons, but I had someone who was a cash buyer who was willing to buy it if I was able to get them.
And then how are you going to make the money?
They
Just
would have
at your
sold it and
commission?
we'd work something out. Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right.
So these things happen. It's very it gets very technical, but the point is that if you want to be a good wholesaler, it won't come and fall into your lap.
Now we keep on talking about the sellers, excuse me, the sellers. But at the same time you're doing this, you have to be finding buyers.
Right,
Who are the
right.
typical buyers?
Sure. So if you're in it to win it, you have to have both sides covered, right?
Okay.
So you need to know who in your local market is buying, because if you're doing all this work and working the sellers, getting leads, you're creating good opportunities for people. So it's not hard to find cash buyers.
What do you mean? It's not hard. It's not hard to find people with cash to just put down on houses.
So not people.
I
with
mean,
cash.
if you're not already
There's always
friends
someone
with,
out
with,
there
with
looking
Eric.
for a deal.
Right,
So-
but
so-
where do you find them? Like,
So-
where am I
I don't
going?
have
Easy.
any cash.
No, so an easy way to find cash buyers is you just go to the sheriff's auction, which happens
Right.
every week, and happens at the county clerk's
That's a
office.
great idea.
And they're all cash buyers. It's a room filled with cash buyers,
So the sheriff's office is where foreclosures are actually taking place.
and all of those deals are cash
Okay.
purchases.
And that room is filled with opportunists, people that
Right.
have cash, because you can only buy it in a foreclosure with cash.
Yeah.
You can't buy a mortgage. So if you have 100 people in that room, in theory, you have 100 qualified cash buyers.
That's it. And you come in and you say, "Hey, I have deals." Everyone is going to flock to you.
Okay.
So you
But
can just have
You
your
become
business
the belle
cards
of the
and throw 'em out
ball,
and-
right?
Yeah, if you even need
a great
business
idea.
card at that point. So when I first started getting some deals, I realized that there's no shortage of cash buyers anywhere. And in fact, as soon as they identify you, they'll latch onto you and they'll tell you, "I want to be your exclusive buyer."
Okay.
And then I'll say, "No, why should I be exclusive with anyone? Because then you're going to knock me down on price. It doesn't make sense for me." So
Cut for a second. Hold on.
We'll schedule one more virtual
that camera's, I don't know if it's, I should be looking at that camera.
No, man.
Mr. Alves.
My neck is like,
Once you say some points, say, you know, it could be like this, and then run us over, like, when you really get into it, something that you think is gonna be a real.
Thank you, Mr.
or, like,
Alves. You
talk,
can go.
You can
Oh, I
comment.
thought
that
you
camera
said
should be
left,
there.
right? Stand there. Oh, thank
There.
you, Mr. Alves. Thank you. Appreciate your
Yeah.
patience. Really do.
Because
Hold
we're
on.
getting that. Is why we got-
Right next,
Yeah, we
I
gotta
think we
cross
have
over.
Ernest Lehman.
But that camera's over, you know. what
Okay,
I mean?
Mr. Lehman
We
is a
gotta
plea
block
to,
it out next.
operating
Okay.
under the influence.
Real quick.
All right, back to buyers.
buyers, okay.
Buyers are liars.
Ooh.
Yes, they are.
You ready?
Buyers are liars. Okay.
So I've heard someone say buyers are liars. What does that mean?
It's a true statement in many cases, especially with investments.
But cash buyers aren't liars.
No, plenty of cash buyers. I'd say majority of them are liars.
Okay.
So when you're looking for cash buyers, you have to vet everything the same way you would do for the seller.
So do you get them to show proof of income?
They have to show proof of funds,
Okay.
and you have
Cash.
you have to
Proof
get
of
to know
cash.
them. Yeah, and you have
Got
to get
it.
to know them, because these days people change their bank statements. They'll get fake LOIs,
Really?
Really?
fake pre-approvals. So people will do these things. So it is somewhat of a relationship. And what happens often is, if you deal with the wrong person, they'll show interest initially, and then they'll just try to hack away at your deal and see if they could cut you out. That's the norm in the investment arena. So because of that, relationships go a long way.
I still don't know how you're getting cut out if you have a contract.
Because a contract isn't fully enforceable in many ways, and unless you
Right.
go to court, it just opens up a can of worms.
Okay.
So what ends up happening is, if you find a deal direct with the seller, what stops a buyer from going straight to the seller? You're going to come back to the seller and say, "Hey, you and I have a contract,"
Yeah.
and then the seller will tell you, "Well, you know what? You can go kick rocks because this person's offering me a lot more than you are.
But it's too late. You signed a paper.
So sue me.
You can't put a stop to the sale of the house?
No.
Okay.
Best you could do is try to cloud the title, but that doesn't go anywhere.
But you can't sue them. But you're saying what would happen if you did sue them? Wouldn't that stop the sale?
No, because I mean the whole process of going to litigation in the court system and avoiding the
Right.
sale, it becomes.
And why would that buyer want to buy the house if he knows it's under contract to someone else? So if I was under contract and then I know there was another buyer, I would try to let that buyer know that it's under contract with me, and I'm going to promote that and push it and create as many problems as possible.
Because you wouldn't know if it's under contract. You wouldn't even know the buyer. You wouldn't know
Okay.
anything about the property, right?
So it would just close.
Yeah. How would you know any of this exists?
Got it.
The only way we know in today's market is through the MLS if it's listed, but we're not talking about listed
So is
properties.
there like a lien I could put on it, or could I put a notice of contract on the property?
Yeah, you can attempt to cloud the title is what they call
Right.
it, but I don't know of any cases where that's been successful.
Okay.
It's a very weak position to have, especially if the seller, if there's a margin to be made on it and the buyer says, hey, you're paying, this guy has you under contract for 150, I'll give you 200 for it. Like, good luck taking that to court and winning. You know, it's losing before you even begin. It's not worth pursuing that time. So
So there's always a risk.
I wouldn't say risk it. I think it's just a waste of time.
Well, this isn't
I
for
meant-
the faint of heart.
I mean, there's always
Yeah.
a
No,
risk when you're
it's-
wholesaling. If your contract, if someone
Oh, yeah.
smells money,
Absolutely.
they're going to jump
so
in.
the one reason I didn't stick to wholesaling full time is it's exactly what you said. It is hard and it's really difficult, especially when you deal with debt, liens, uncertainty. The banks have specific timelines, and when you have to close, if you don't close, you spend months just wasting your time. Buyers flake at the last minute. So it's not easy to do at all. Now there's some markets where it's much more easier. Some niche markets where there's more inventory. Some out of state places that you could buy things right off the market and they make sense. But in New Jersey, North Jersey is definitely not one of them.
All right.
Wow.
know.
I just want to go back to something that you were talking about. So you used to go out 3 a.m. in the morning, dressed all in black, like a ninja,
Like a bandit.
putting signs all over the place. I'm almost certain that can't be legal. Did you ever run into any problems with that? I mean, come on. Did you ever have police cars going bloop bloop, like pulling up on you?
So
Like,
I'm
what's
glad
going on?
you brought that up because we didn't touch up on that. But yeah, it's against every city ordinance and every. So you won't-
Every city ordinance.
Yeah. So every city has ordinances against putting up these types of signs, and if you decide to do it, I'm not suggesting you do it. I'm just offering suggestions that are out there. If you decide to do it, just be aware that the city is not going to accept it. You'll get calls from the municipal courts, from police officers, and they'll want to know and find out who's putting up signs on the
Okay,
property.
so tell us your story, because this is a popcorn moment, guys. Popcorn moment. Tell us your story
So-
about how
You tell
Omar
us about
almost went to jail.
almost jail story.
Omar's
I wouldn't
jail
say.
story.
Oh, let's hope not jail. But the whole name of it is bandit signs, because you're out there like a bandit putting up these signs.
Okay.
So the worst that had happened to me initially was you get stopped by a police officer who sees you putting up these signs, and they tell you to stop doing it. Fine. But there was this one time where I answered a call. I was in my house from one of these signs, and the call didn't say anything. I don't remember a specific conversation, but after I hung up a few minutes later, some police officer showed up at my door.
They literally tracked you.
Yeah, I still don't know how he did it. I give him credit for doing it. Maybe he used some GPS location device. But next thing you know, he's knocking on my door and he says, you need to stop putting up your signs around town. And I'm like, officer, I have no idea what you're talking about.
What signs? Signs? Me? Never.
So I was taken back by it. Who would expect a door knock like that? So
What did you tell him?
I told him I didn't put up the signs, which at that time I didn't put up the signs. Right? So I told him I didn't put up the
You
signs.
had one of your cronies putting up the signs.
So I told him I didn't put up the signs. If you're referring to the real estate signs, I work with people who do that, but I answer phone calls.
Okay.
He pulled the "I'm just the receptionist"
Yes.
thing. Got it.
So even then, the officer, he was really nice about it. He said, look, we don't like that around this town. It doesn't look good. I'm like, you have a good point. I'll tell them to stop. So some towns will be more strict about it than others. And just that's something to keep in mind.
You're like, I'll tell them to stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
So from wholesaling to jail,
Right.
Omar Sharif's life story here at the remix.
I love that story. So wait, he tracked you. He came to your house.
Yeah.
You got out of it. Did he ticket you or anything?
No. Thankfully, he didn't. But I have lots of other friends who have been ticketed. They've gone to court for it. They've had to pay fines. So it's
Okay.
common. If you decide to take that route, which I'm not recommending,
Cost of doing business, though.
if you look at it that way, yeah. Yeah.
In the underworld.
Yeah,
Wow.
Well,
that's it.
Well, that's exciting. I can't wait to go out and start wholesaling.
are you going to go out and start wholesaling?
I'm gonna go for the bigger wholesale stuff, but
It's
it's
you know what, when you first hear about it, or when I heard about it on TikTok, it sounded like something I was like, why aren't I doing this? This sounds amazing.
Yeah.
However, 3 a.m. I am dead asleep. I'm not out putting up signs
Yeah.
in the middle of somewhere. And
Yeah.
and I don't like dealing with shady people. So I don't
agreed.
know.
But to your viewers who are listening, who are interested in getting involved, let's keep in mind that there is an entire area of wholesaling where you don't have to dig into the dirt, and
Okay.
you can operate this, find some good deals, wholesale it to somebody else, and still do well for yourself.
Well,
Awesome.
I am going to take your class so I can find out those non-dirty ways of being in wholesaling and find out the ways that would work for me. I'm excited about it.
It also sounds like a great second job for people.
Yes.
If you're a stay-at-home parent, you
Yep.
have some extra time on your hands.
Yep.
It sounds like a great opportunity where you're not really putting the money out, doing a flip, which requires
Yep.
so much time and energy. So I think
Yeah.
this is a great opportunity for people. And with the markets the way they are today, the uncertainty of the economy, the
Yep.
high interest rates, who knows what's going to happen? It could be wholesaling time.
We all need some, right? I mean, we could fall back into that place where there's a ton of stuff to do. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Omar. Thank you for
Thanks so
sharing your
much.
wholesaling story
to be
for
here.
us.
Yay!
So remember, if you visualize it, you can own it. So go be a wholesaler. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.